rather. When can we expect some of these bigger names to sign, and when can we see them in camp?
I mean, I think you look at two of the biggest names, Jake Arrieta and JD Martinez, still unsigned, and no one really knows, specifically Jake Arrieta, whether or not he's going to sign with the Cubs. There's belief that JD Martinez will go to the Red Sox, but of course, nothing's done yet. But I think we should see some deals done probably mid-March, I guess, during spring training at some point. You'd expect it. But I think teams are hesitant on them specifically because they're both 30 years old and Jake Arrieta 31. So I feel like teams sort of are worried about paying two 30-year-olds, or in one case 31-year-old, a lot of money just because if you spend, 5 years, $100+ million, you don't know what could happen to them health-wise by year 2 or 3. So I think that's sort of why they haven't been signed. But I still expect them to, one, get a lot of money and two, be signed before opening day. Yeah, I 100% agree. I think especially if they can't find a deal with Jake Arrieta, that's going to hurt them a lot because, like you said, Yu Darvish has the injury history. You haven't really seen the consistency, and we haven't really seen all the hype that came around and with him when he first got into league. I can't remember. I think it was like 4 seasons ago or whatever.
2012.
Yeah, so whatever, 6 years ago.
Math is hard.
Yeah, math is hard. Right, exactly.
It's tough.
So I think, they obviously still have Anthony Rizzo. They still have Chris Bryant. So they still have those big name guys that helped them win a World Series just a couple seasons ago. But nonetheless, I think, one, if they can't sign Jake Arrieta, and two, if Yu Darvish can't live up to that huge contract, they'll still be a favorite, but they won't be that clear-cut favorite like you said.
You have to pick one of the two, Dan. These guys have each made the case for either one. Who do you pick between LA and Washington?
I was looking at it before the show. I 100% think it's Washington that's right up behind them. I'm sorry, Michael.
LA's great too.
No, LA's great too, but one, we've seen Washington these past couple seasons right on the cusp. They're almost like the Capitals who are also in Washington. They're great in the regular season, but then when they get to the playoffs, it's like a new team. It's like a completely different team. So I think we're finally going to see them break through. And this is a make-or-break season with them. They got Bryce Harper, who's a free agent next year. They got Daniel Murphy, who's a free agent next year. They have Gio Gonzalez, who's a free agent next year. So those are 3 of their biggest players, specifically Bryce Harper, who's also going to ask for a lot of money. So I think if they can make a deep playoff push, whether it's just getting to the pennant, let alone winning one, if they can win one, I think they may be able to keep all 3 of them, or at least Bryce Harper. So I think they really have a lot of pressure, and I think they'll be able to actually finally take that next step. I agree with San Francisco and the Mets, but I really have to agree with Michael here. I think the Brewers really like you said, they were great last year, but then they just sort of fell. Yeah,
that's the problem.
But
but they wouldn't be coming out of nowhere.
Right. Well, whatever. But
Tomato,
Eric
tomato.
Thames had a great season last year. Craig Counsell said they got a lot of depth coming into spring training with the pitching staff. So I think those two things, and Eric Thames specifically has that underdog story. He kind of was out of baseball over in, I think, Korea, then all of a sudden comes back to the MLB last season and just blows up. So I think we can see another season out of that. Obviously, you talked about the all-season additions. So all of that, I think, they got a shot. I can't agree more. It's just going to be a scary lineup, game in and game out. I mean, you look at it, especially specifically Stanton and Judge, it's like, pick your poison. You probably have to pitch around one but face the other because you're not going to go back-to-back and, intentionally walk both of them because then they just put you in a terrible position. So, they're going to be really scary, especially late in the season, especially towards the postseason. Yeah, I agree. I think it's just, can Aaron Boone sort of emerge and really be he knows the Yankee way. He played for the Yankees, so that's huge for them. He understands the system, but can he handle that pressure, especially now with that addition of Stanton? There's going to be even more pressure for them to not only win the division, but get to a pennant and probably win. I just don't know if he can handle that yet, but like Jack said, they have plenty of pieces to make a run, but so does Houston. And I forget exactly who said it from their team, but someone said that they got even better. It's the same team basically, but they just feel as a team that they got better, and that's hard to knock confidence, especially after you win a World Series. It's just tough to do. It's honestly going to be a coin toss at the end. I don't see one as really much more of a clear-cut favorite than the other. It's really going to be, I think, one of those situations, who's the hotter team towards the end of the season and into the postseason.
Michael's ready. All right, the first question, NL MVP. We'll start with Dan and go around.
NL MVP, I think it's Nolan Arenado. He took a huge step last year, 37 home runs, I think 130 RBIs. Really helped that Rockies team elevate to a new level. I think he's got it.
AL Cy Young.
Corey Kluber, one of the better pitchers of the past couple seasons. Everything about him I love, and I think he takes it this season.